One of the greatest challenges to listing agents is when they enter what's called the seller servicing period. The listing agreement is essentially getting the commitment, but now we've got week-to-week communication. The question is, does the seller ever fail to communicate back with the agent, or is the seller replying back an email, but you called them and you want to speak to them? Because speaking to the seller gives you their tone, get a feel for how things are going. So we want to make sure it's a two-way street, seller, that I'll stay in touch with you, but I need to know that you're going to reply back. Now remember, the night you take the listing, they're pretty cooperative. They like you, but you go 20 days and you have no showings on the property, they're going to start pulling back. They maybe think we hired the wrong agent or the wrong agency. So let's set the expectations up front. So communications stay right out in front, that we're always communicating. That way we're more effective at getting the price reduction if necessary. Contract negotiations will go better if we stay in touch with them. Listing extensions if we need them. So here's what it is. It's a 10-point assurance document that we want the seller to sign after you've got the listing agreement signed. And then you put this in front of both parties and you ask for an agreement. It's a commitment on your part and it's a commitment on their part as well. But the biggest thing is we're setting expectations of how things are going to be. The first one is seller agrees to allow for showings 7 days a week during this time slot and that time slot. Let's get out of the way the surprise later when the seller says to us, we don't want any showings today, or we don't want any showings this weekend. Let's let them know they're kind of making a commitment to us, because we are working 7 days a week on their behalf. We need to make sure that the property is available. Now, if it's not, this is the time to clear that up. By the way, if they say, well, we have a dog and we work all day, so we can't have showings between these hours and these hours. Well, now your listing has lower probability of selling if nobody can get into it. So let's solve that problem right then and there. Next, seller agrees to reply to all calls and emails within 24 hours. But I'll do the same. So we share with the seller that we expect you to reply to all calls and emails, and I will do the same thing. The reason that this is important to get an agreement with the seller, when you hit a bump in the market and you don't have any showings in the property, or they're infrequent showings, and you're looking for the seller to still keep that relationship and the trust level high, we need to stay in touch with them. And because what will happen often is, again, no showings, seller pulls back. We want the seller to know if we're reaching out to them during this relationship, they will always be responsive. When I contact you, I give you my word that you contact me, I'll be responsive. All right, number 3, seller understands that it could take 1 to 3 days to get feedback. Now, we want to over-serve and under-promise. If we promise we were on top of things, we get feedback within 24 hours, well, you know how it is. Agents are not that responsive and don't want to give feedback quite often. So let the seller know that it could take 1 to 3 days. I'll do my best to get it quickly, but let's set the expectations that they're not going to happen. You have a showing at noon and they want the feedback by 7 p.m. The other agent's tied up. They could be in a movie, who knows, but let's let the seller know, set the expectations. It could take 1 to 3 days. In addition, the seller, I want you to know that I would like to chat with you at least one time during the week to give you market updates, other properties that reduced their price, other properties that went under contract, because your house is in the market of properties, in good, bad, or indifferent. I'll have a market update for you each week, good, bad, or indifferent. I want to make sure that we're going to have that conversation. Now, what's important about this is your commitment to the seller, that you're going to be staying in touch with them. In addition, though, we want to make sure that you have at least one opportunity per week to talk about it if the property is overpriced. Because we know that if it's overpriced, it isn't going to sell until we lower it, which increases the probability. Now, some agents say, I don't want to speak to my clients every week. I'm kind of busy. I'd rather not have to be tied down to them. Well, just remember, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients. And if we find ourselves so busy because we're out lead generating and we're not taking care of the relationships that we're already in control of and that were given to us, that's really a poor business model. Again, if you take listings but you don't have time to serve them, I actually think they deserve better. They potentially should be with a different realtor. We want somebody, if I got my house on the market, I'm going to want that agent to be responsive to me, that I'm the most important client. That's what home sellers think. But too often, agents say, I just don't have time to give to my people. And also, we're hoping that you, as the agent watching this, know that every 2 weeks, you should be getting a price reduction on a listing until that thing sells. Get that price reduction. We covered that in some other videos. Time frame, how you get it, how you ask for it, what data is necessary. But it should be that we agree with the seller that we're going to get back together about every 2 weeks for a face-to-face sit-down. Because we know face-to-face sit-downs, you as the agent are really reading, making emotional deposits with the seller because you're there face-to-face. You get a much better read in their body language, the reluctance to change the price. You could do this over the telephone, but we're trying to get larger price reductions face-to-face, make emotional deposits with these people, which all these things increase the probability of us selling the property. So we also, again, one of the commitments here we're asking the seller for is getting back together face-to-face. And last few things here, seller understands, for example, we're not expecting to get a house sale contingency. Now, you might be okay with a house sale contingency. However, what we're trying to do is get the seller to agree. Ideally, we don't have a house sale contingency, which then allows you to actually escape having to do any open houses if you don't want to do open houses. So often sellers expect the open house is going to be effective, it's going to help sell their property, when we all know that you got about a 3% chance of selling that property on an open house. So if you're looking for a way to share with the sellers that open houses are not part of my business model, simply share with them that if you don't want a house sale contingency, and we tend to find buyers who come through open houses who don't have houses listed, they have to write contingent upon the sale and closing of their property. If you're okay with a house sale contingency, you could do open houses. But if you prefer not to get a house sale contingency and bet on another property that's not listed yet, then you would prefer, again, not to hold open houses at all, because that's the kind of buyer that we're attracting. At open houses, people are going to write contingent upon the sale. As an agent carrying 25 listings, I wanted to hold no open houses, and pretty much for the last 13, 15 years of my career, I held no open houses. My sellers didn't demand upon me. Now, other agents on my team held open houses for those properties, but I wanted to make sure the seller understood what those were. Flat out lead generation opportunities. It wasn't done to help sell the property. All right. In addition, in the marketplace, let's say you have 3,000 agents or 8,000 agents, similar in our marketplace. I want the seller to know that there's about 8,000 realtors in our market area. It's highly unlikely that I, the listing agent, or anybody in my office, potentially not even my brand, will bring the buyers to the property. We have too many independent companies in our area and too many large franchises. And what's going to happen is they're going to be bringing buyers. Yes, our office is going to potentially bring buyers to the property, but I want to set the expectations. We co-broker, we work with all these other firms. What's important here, especially after I pursued so many expired listings in my real estate career, is we found that sellers had an expectation that the listing agent was going to sell the property or show the property, or that their office would. Well, you and I both know if your agents in your office don't have a buyer now, there's a pretty good chance they're not going to have a buyer during the time that you have the property listed. So if the seller has expectations that people in your office are going to show it, either they had that on their own before your meeting expectation, or you gave it to them when you said you're going to try to find the buyer. Now, we covered this on the Smart PR videos, that there's a FIB program that I will find the individual buyer, and the FAB program that I will find the agent with the buyer. We want to set expectations here on this document that you are not going to have the buyer, most likely. There's no agent in your office going to have the buyer. That way the seller doesn't see this thing as failing. So our last couple things here, seller understands that if a price adjustment is ever necessary, the goal is to have one of two things to happen. Again, we're setting expectations about how the house is going to be in the market, how showings are going to be handled, how feedback is going to be handled, that type of a thing. But this is driving specifically at if a price adjustment is necessary, here's what we anticipate will happen. It should generate three to four showings, or whatever you want to say, in a short run. And we think that could happen in about 2 weeks. So let them know how many showings, if they do a price adjustment, will probably occur and over what period of time, and that should be enough to generate an offer. So we're setting expectations. A price adjustment might be necessary. And if it's necessary, here's what I expect to happen. X amount of showings should occur within a 2-week period. An offer should probably occur from one of those buyers who looked at the property. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't generate an offer, it's either a conspiracy to get them, kind of tongue-in-cheek, a conspiracy to get them, or the price of the property still does not match the features that are missing. The price does not match the features that are missing based on the market that we're in, which means the buyers are still voting with their feet and saying that you're overpriced. Our goal, if we didn't price it right from the get-go, is to adjust it, get to market value, and realize if we get X amount of showings over a certain period of time, we should get an offer. And if it doesn't happen, it's a clear signal that we can be confident we are not underpriced. But what does that mean? The price still may be too high for the marketplace. All right, so in summary, this was a video training about setting expectations at the kitchen table regarding will you show it, other companies show it, how showing appointments will be set, and how price adjustments will be done, and generally how communication is about getting back together. Otherwise, during seller servicing, the stuff comes back to bite you because the seller has a different set of expectations than we often want to deliver. All right, thanks for watching.